Hi folks, I'm Dr. White. Today I'm going to provide a timeline of the controversy over the use of Tylenol by pregnant women and the subsequent risk of autism. If you're like me, and I hope you're not, I have trouble paying attention for more than like 5 to 7 minutes when I'm watching a YouTube video. So I'm going to make this really brief, so hopefully you get the flavor, within that time period. So there was an article in the New York Times recently. You know that this has flared up into the mainstream media because of Trump's statements, but actually the controversy has been going on since about 2009, 2010. So an early article was seen in 2010, and they published a graph, which I think is sort of interesting. It shows the prevalence of autism increasing from 1960 to 1990, and they correlate it with periods when there was a Tylenol scare, quote unquote. So for example, in 1982, there was a big Tylenol scare in Chicago where something like 5 people were poisoned by contaminated Tylenol products. And during that time, the rate of increase in autism was flattened out. It then resumed. There was another scare in 1986 where one person died in New York. And again, the rate of autism rise flattened out and then resumed. The FDA has made statements about the safety of acetaminophen. Their last statement was in 2015, where they reviewed the data and they said that, based on our evaluation of these observational studies, they think the weight of the evidence is inconclusive. They basically said, look, the data isn't good enough for us to issue a new warning. A major bombshell occurred in 2021. A group of scientists got together and scientists from multiple disciplines got together and they reviewed all the evidence and they outlined the different lines of evidence, for example, like including prospective animal studies. And they wrote a precautionary letter. It's a precautionary paper. It contains a great review of all of the lines of evidence for this association between Tylenol use and autism. And this is what they suggested: that that pregnant women should avoid acetaminophen unless it's medically indicated, that they consult their doctor when they use it. They should minimize exposure by using the lowest dose for the shortest possible time. And they were particularly concerned about not using Tylenol unless it was really necessary. There was a big outcry. A lot of media stuff came out about this. Then in 2024, in April 2024, a counter bombshell was dropped. And they did a retrospective study, mining data from the past, from questionnaires that women had answered when they first got pregnant, where they listed all sorts of health data, including every medication that they were taking. And the interesting thing about the findings were that this is called the sibling control study, this patient paper in JAMA. And the reason it's called the sibling control study, is that they took all this data and they concluded, yes, our data does show an association between Tylenol use and autism, but we're going to adjust the data by looking at the brothers and sisters of the kids who have autism, those kids who the mothers didn't take Tylenol. So they're saying, like, the mother took Tylenol during this pregnancy, but she didn't take it during this pregnancy. Let's compare the kids. And when they compared the kids, they found out that the kids, where the mother didn't take Tylenol, were just as likely to have autism. So they said, it's not the acetaminophen, it's genetics. It's the kid has the same genes. The problem is this study had a major flaw, and that was that the number of women who self-identified as using Tylenol was something like 7%. And we know that it's actually more like 50 to 70%. So there was a lot of women in this study who were probably taking autism who had been, put into the not taking autism box. Not taking Tylenol box. So then there was another huge bombshell that was published very recently, August of this year. And they did a retrospective study, which also looked at the quality of the study. So they ranked things as like high quality, medium quality, and so forth. And they said the higher quality studies did, in fact, convincingly show an association. They concluded that our analysis supports the evidence for an association during pregnancy and the risk of neurodevelopmental disorders. They say appropriate and immediate steps should be taken to advise pregnant women to limit acetaminophen consumption to protect the offspring's neurodevelopment. And that sort of brings us up to date. Okay, folks, I hope you got something out of the video. I know I packed a lot of material into a short video, and I did that intentionally. I will probably create other videos on more specific topics regarding this controversy. If you want to see a particular topic, please let me know in the comments and I'll do the best that I can. Take care for now.